Brew Strong is brought to you by Blickman Engineering, home of the top-tier brewing stand. Visit them online at blickmanengineering.com.
Brewers, it's time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think. Jamil and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, howdy, hey, my brewing brothers and sisters, back for another episode of Brew Strong. Here with my good buddy, John the Rock Palmer.
Where? Greetings, cretins. How you doing?
And my other good friend here, Jason Petros.
I don't know what to laugh at more. You said The Rock, and he said where, like a fiend, or that he called everyone cretins. I like that. I like that about you, Palmer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Everybody's got to like something. So.
Yeah. Well, let me know what it is about me, and then we'll go from
We're still working on that one. We've got a whole lab devoted to figuring that one out.
Yeah,
so Mike wasn't available tonight, huh?
Cold. You know, I can tell you this, our fine new sponsor, Blickman Engineering, and my good buddy, John Blickman himself, would be very, he'd be your friend, JP.
I've talked to that guy a couple times. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, he really is.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of the things. You know, I got a chance to hang out with him out in Milwaukee at the Northern Brewer opening, and he's funny. He's entertaining. He's a little goofy at times. You know, he's a regular homebrew dude. You know, he's despite all his engineering prowess to make these incredible pieces of brewing equipment, he's just your average funny, nice guy. You know, you want to hang out with and have some beers with.
Much like John Palmer.
Well,
yeah.
Let's
that's a nice comparison. Thank you.
You're welcome, Jonathan.
Let's not really push this into unrealistic territory here.
But JP, it's good to have you on the show.
Well, thanks. I appreciate you guys having me on again.
Yeah, no, it's good to have you on. I think you bring a nice,
what?
Odor.
It's a little something.
We
can't put our finger on it.
Yeah. I'm sure the Glade has a plug-in for it, but
Jamil's writing jokes.
No, I think you bring a good brewer's perspective to, you've seen a lot of stuff from a lot of brewers in your job. You deal with a vast number of home brewers. And you know a lot of pro brewers as well, and you do a lot of your own brewing as well as being one of our brewers for Can You Brew It?
Yeah.
So it's nice to have you on.
No, yeah, anytime. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Anyways, let's see. So Blickman is sponsoring our show now. John decided to pay cash money so you could listen to the show for free. And I think that's pretty sweet. So if you get a chance, you need to respond back to Blickman, let them know that you listen to the show and that his money isn't wasted.
Dear John, your money is not wasted.
It's not wasted.
Listener.
I appreciated listening to the show for free. Go to their website, www.blickmanengineering.com. And Blickman is Blichmann. Again, if you just go to Google and type in something that kind of sounds like Blickman and engineering, it'll take you to the right site. And you're going to see their top tier modular brewing stand. Very sweet, because you can make this thing work for just about any size batch you want to do, and
really customizable.
It's a great piece of art equipment. I mean, just the way they run the lines and things like that are just really sweet. It's a really well done piece of gear. Their kettles. They've got the Therminator for chilling your wort. They've got the beer gun for filling your bottles with the quiescent fill. They've got the conical fermenters. They got everything, and all this stuff. John's designed, John's used. He really knows, and John Blickman, and then Palmer. You're using a top tier system, right?
Yeah, I am. I have a lot of their equipment. It's just I really like the amount of design that he's put into these things, the amount of consideration.
Huge amount of design.
Yeah,
he's thought of all the little things.
Yeah,
stuff to make your brew day easier, to make your beer more consistent, to remove all those things that you worry about. Hot side aeration and CO2 in your bottle, or oxygen in your bottles, things like that.
Yeah, he's always thinking about stuff. He's always looking for, what's the next gadget that would improve the brew day.
Yeah, what
good stuff.
What process can he make easier? What how can he make your beer better? And it's sweet stuff. And we really appreciate them sponsoring this show. They again, they're bringing this show to you for free. And the sweet thing about Blickman is, as a sponsor, is you can go to your local homebrew shop and you can buy your Blickman gear through them. Support your local homebrew shop as well, which is really important, because without those local homebrew shops, we don't get homebrewers, and the whole hobby goes down the toilet. So make sure your local homebrew shop feels some of the love too. Go in there and see if you can pick up some Blickman gear. If you can't, that's all right. I understand. It's a bad economy, and but at the very least, a phone call or an email is pretty much free. And send one out to Blickman. Show them some love for showing us some love. Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
You might think that just shooting an email to a sponsor, even though you're not going to buy anything right now, or you can't, or whatever,
right.
Isn't going to do anything. It does.
Yeah,
it does
absolutely.
a lot. It really does. It lets them know that they're in the public eye. People know about them. People are talking about them. People appreciate what they do. So yeah, just do it. Don't think about it. Don't think, someone else will write it for me. No.
They
do
won't,
it. You
they
do it
won't
yourself.
Care.
Yeah,
or they won't read it. JP's right. It makes a huge difference, because the number of people who think about it and say, "Oh yeah, I'll go ahead and send an email," and then they don't, because it's too much trouble to actually do it.
Yeah.
That's the majority of people, and just a tiny fraction of people actually send the email. So if you go out there and send that email to them, they're going to see it. They're going to, they'll be surprised. It's like writing your legislator, it's your congressperson. They get 3 emails, they're freaking out, because normally the number of people who are willing to actually put the effort out to send an email is like non-existent.
Especially something positive.
Right.
You'll find everybody saying something negative.
Wants to bitch and complain, yeah.
But the person that sends something positive, it holds a lot more weight.
That's
so
very
definitely email and let them know where you heard about them.
Excellent point, buddy. All right.
Thanks, pal.
All right. He's my beer pal. Yeah. All right. Today's topic.
Hey guys, this is Brew Pastor Tom Hart from Corrales, New Mexico here. I have a topic that I'd love for you to cover: aeration and oxygenation. What's a brewer to do, aeration or oxygenation? I mean, why one and why the other? Lots of questions, like what volumes are useful and what happens if you go overboard? How does temperature affect saturation? What are the different standards of measurement? How they compare with each other? There's more gadgets out there than you can shake a aeration wand out. So the questions go on and on. So I'll just leave it to you to walk us through it all. Thanks for what you're doing. Brew Strong. Prost.
Yeah, Tom is a longtime listener, and he's longtime BJCB judge, and
really
he's been in the homebrew game and BJCPN game, like twice as long as I have.
How come he doesn't have his own show?
He does every Sunday. He's a brew pastor. His show is
the Lord's show.
His show is of a different kind.
He produces the Lord's show.
That's right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
God has a different path for him.
Yes.
For me, It's getting drunk and talking
large
into a
balls.
microphone
Yeah.
in a studio that smells like sweaty nuts.
Dogs.
For him, it's, doing the Lord's work. So, which one of us is really,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah, now I'm feeling depressed.
I'll make a pro-con list for you, Jamil.
Yeah, no, don't do that. I'll end up committing suicide. And,
Yeah.
that's not what they want. That's a sin as well.
Right.
Well, we should put up for a vote.
Zing! Oh, man.
Oh, it's not often, but every once in a while, Palmer comes up with something that's actually funny.
Yeah, he did.
There you go. There's an example right
Love
there.
it.
All right. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, let's dig into aeration and everything about it. Back after this.
Brew right. Brew smart.
Brew Strong. This is Brew Strong.
From the stovetop to a camp burner to some kind of brew stand, most homebrewers follow some version of this progression. With each move, a homebrewer will often have to change a lot, if not all, of their equipment. Until now, Blickman Engineering brings you the top-tier brewing stand, the only brewing stand that grows with you. For example, buy a top-tier floor-standing burner now, and it'll bolt right to your top-tier brewing stand when you're ready for all-grain brewing. The top-tier brewing stand is perfect for 5-gallon to 20-gallon batch sizes. Its modular design is adjustable and accommodates everything from small footprint coolers up to 30-gallon pots. How does the top-tier brewing stand do it? At its core is a strong, heat-treated, and anodized aluminum main post. On all 4 sides are built-in T-slots for the adjustable heavy-gauge stainless steel shelves and beefy burner tiers. The tiers accommodate any manufacturer's pots or coolers up to 21 inches in diameter. Best of all, not only does the top-tier brewing stand grow with your skills and equipment, but it easily knocks down for long-term storage or transport, too. The top-tier brewing stand from Blickman Engineering. Learn more at blickmanengineering.com and to find a local Blickman retailer. And start brewing from the top tier.
Downtown Joe's, located in the historic Oberon building in beautiful downtown Napa, California, offers an award-winning brew pub experience from 8:30 a.m. to 1 a.m. every day. For 15 years at the corner of 2nd and Main, Downtown Joe's has been voted Best Night Spot 7 times and Best Brew Pub for the last 4 years in a row. Brewmaster Colin Kaminsky's handcrafted ales, like his Tailwagon Amber Ale and Catherine the Great Imperial Stout, are the perfect accent to riverside dining, live music, and a relaxing outdoor patio. Don't miss the Beer of the Month, special rotating taps, and happy hour all day Mondays. Visit downtownjoes.com to make reservations, peruse their extensive calendar of events, or just read more about their fantastic beers. Come enjoy the fine beer, food, and music. Downtown Joe's, the award-winning brew pub where you'll feel at home.
Where were we? You stole an oak barrel from the mist of Ravenwood, and Lord Zinfandel the Avenger is in pursuit. Do you drop the barrel and run? Hells no.
We need it for a Flinders Red.
I'm gonna cast Pediococcus damnithus on the barrel. Sorry, your ghosts are imprisoned in his winery forever. Ugh, I hate it when Greg's the brewmaster.
This sucks.
What do we have here? Orville Rodenbach?
Buzz off, guy. We got a brew session going. Is that an actual beer?
Yeah, I crafted it. I don't really use the dice anymore. I'm a 10th level beer nerd.
Are you a 10th level beer nerd? Do you get a long-lasting foam stand when you think about wheat malt? Then you're in good company at Northern Brewer. Northern Brewer has all your beer nerd needs. Ingredients, equipment, and knowledge at northernbrewer.com. Plus, fast, cheap shipping. Only $7.99 for the contiguous USA. And check out Northern Brewer's huge selection of dorky beer kits, including the pre-prohibition lager.
Perfect for steampunk.
And the single hop best bitter.
Now on cask and 10 forward.
Make 10th level at northernbrewer.com.
In the past year, the Brewing Network has been able to add 2 new shows, expand our studio capabilities and quality, and bring more beer information home to you than ever before. In no small part, this is due to subscribers like you. Thank you from all of us at the Brewing Network. Without your monthly support of any denomination, we could not bring you the very best in live beer radio like Can You Brew It, Brew Strong, and the Sunday Session. Haven't signed up yet? Join your fellow brewers in the BN Army. Sign up today at thebrewingnetwork.com for a recurring donation as little as $2 a month. Besides all the great live radio you'll support, every subscriber is automatically entered in monthly raffles for amazing brew gear like a conical fermenter, a temperature control system, or your own draft setup. Become a part of the BN Army today.
Hilo, what's it feel like?
Take awesome and multiply it by 2.
Yeah! Spraying live beer radio all over your face.
Can't get any better than this, baby.
It's the Brewing Network.
Back to the two guys that know how to turn beer into beer. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. Tom's got a great question about aeration. We all know that we should aerate our wort before pitching our yeast or during pitching our yeast, before fermentation. And the whole purpose is to, provide the oxygen that the yeast need to form the sterols, which are used for the cell membrane permeability, things like that. Essentially for the health of the yeast when they're replicating and getting ready to ferment the batch of beer. So that's a really why you need to add oxygen. And oxygen could be added a number of ways. So you see these devices for like splashing the wort into your fermenter. You see like aquarium pumps with a sterile filter into, using that to bubble away for a long period of time. Or you see oxygen, sintered stones with an oxygen tank. People use the little welding oxygen tanks. I use a medical oxygen tank because it has a regulator that controls the flow of oxygen. I can dial it in half a liter, quarter liter, half a liter, a full liter, whatever, of flow, and controls a nice consistent flow into the beer, so you can actually measure how much oxygen you're delivering. And Tom had a lot of good questions here.
Yep.
All right, so Tom was, and here's a common question, and I think I get this one a lot, because I talk oxygen and kind of poo-poo the aeration thing, and I think in How to Brew, you mentioned aeration with an aquarium pump and a sterile filter.
Right.
And so
right.
People say, well, why one versus the other? Should we debate? Shall we put on our geek caps and you take aeration with an aquarium pump? I'll take the oxygen, or should we just run through it?
Well, we could do a little bit, but
okay.
Probably, if we get too caught up in the debate, then we're gonna miss the
we'll start punching each other and calling each other names.
But I wouldn't mind hearing you both state a nice case, that part of the debate.
Then we cry and we hug and we make up. It happens so often in this show.
Yeah, we could save that part for later.
Yeah, when the show's over, Jamil. That's when Palmer really can cuddle.
Yeah, he and I have slept together in the same room.
I've heard that.
Right. All right. So, I'll start off. I think.
Try.
That's too. I'm going to be tasty right now, and I'm going to start keeping track of John's hits.
Going to start scoring this.
That's 2 hits.
Oh, no.
For John. That's 2 homers.
No, I think one of the values to using an aquarium pump to add oxygen to your beer is that it's relatively inexpensive. Once you've bought the pump and the sterile filter, that's good for endless amounts of batches, and
right.
You just plug it in. You're going to run a penny or two of electricity, and that's going to add enough oxygen to really do what you need to do with the beer.
Yep. There is a downside, of course, but it's foaming.
Right. And the problem with foaming is
you got to turn off the pump, otherwise you're going to just have tons of foam coming out of the fermenter.
Right. Well, and we did that show on head retention on foam.
Yeah.
Go back to the archives. You can pick that up for free, thanks to our lovely sponsors. And the problem is those head forming proteins, they only form once. And if you're running a stone inside your wort for 45 minutes, which some people tend to do, that tend to use these aquarium hubs, you're destroying those head-forming proteins, and you could seriously impact head retention on your beer. And a number of people have said, I started doing this, and I'm not getting any head on my beers. What's going on?
I didn't know. That's an amazing point that they only form once. Because while you're talking about that, I was thinking, couldn't you use foam control like I do in the boil and in my starters? Mm-hmm. But then again, would that ruin those head forming components also?
No, it doesn't.
That's a whole different action.
Okay. Would it work then using foam control and then not have to worry about the over foaming?
I believe so. And I think Push had said he uses that with a pump, or oxygen doesn't have as much foaming during the aeration stage then.
Well, and the value to using pure oxygen is you run it for far less time,
right?
Because you're talking about 5 times as much oxygen as you are with regular air, right? So you run at a fifth the amount of time, and then the other thing about running oxygen is it's sterile already. You don't need to run a sterile filter. I know a lot of people have run. I've talked to people that they put a sterile filter inline in their oxygen, and you really don't need to do that because nothing's living in 100% oxygen. So that's not an issue, right?
Right. Yeah, I guess a downside to oxygen is that, in the whole purpose of aeration is to get oxygen dissolved into the wort where it's accessible for the yeast. Yeast can't use a bubble that's rising through the wort. What they can use is, as that bubble rises, the surface area of that bubble, the contact of that bubble with the wort, is going to peel off a few oxygen molecules here and there as it rises. And so I think a downside to using oxygen, people will put a stone into the wort and they'll give it a blast to oxygen for 30 seconds, and they say, okay, that's the amount that I need. The trouble is, depending on the size of the stone and the depth of the wort and so on, other factors, 90% of that blast could have just risen to the surface and exited the fermenter.
Oh, 99% of it does. I mean, you don't eat, and the same's true with air. The difference is the head space of your fermenter, and this is really dependent on how much head space you have and how shallow and wide your fermenter is. So the wider your fermenter, if you're doing this in a
bucket,
a corny keg, you have a narrow surface. If you're doing it in a 6-gallon glass carboy or a bucket, you have a much wider surface, and how much that fermenter is filled. If you run your oxygen or your air until you've filled that area over the wort, below the restricted neck of the carboy, one of the reasons why carboys is nice, that's you fill that with pure oxygen. The surface area, that's really where it's like in a fish tank. With an aquarium, really, the whole reason behind the sintered stones in an aquarium and the bubbling action is to keep the surface moving and keep exchanging liquid to the surface of the aquarium. You have that large surface area in an aquarium. As the bubbles rise, they draw liquid with them from the bottom. The liquid that has no oxygen on the bottom rises to the surface, exchanges with the surface liquid. It's kind of similar to what happens on a stir plate. When you're stirring a starter, you're mixing that liquid, so you're getting more oxygen deficient liquid to the surface, and you get diffusion through the surface layer. And that's really where a lot of it happens. So if you fill that head of that fermenter with oxygen, you get quite a bit into the the bubbles that rise are really not where it's at. It's really just
the surface. Yeah.
It's a surface, but it's the reason for the smaller bubbles. People go, well, do I really need a sintered stone? Then can't I just fill the surface area of the fermenter? You can shake it and all that, but the benefit to having the sintered stone at the bottom and all those fine bubbles is the fine bubbles draw considerably more liquid from the bottom to the surface and keep the whole surface, the whole mass of liquid exchanging with the surface and the oxygen at the top, and that's how you develop a lot of oxygen into your liquid. And so that's the advantage of the sintered stone. And you can do that with air or oxygen. Again, having pure oxygen at the top, you're going to get 5 times as much O2 into your liquid, right?
Very good point. Yeah.
Well, and what's the temperature effect on saturation? That's one thing. Hot wort versus cool wort. Lager wort. If you already cooled down for lager brewing, what's the difference in solubility of oxygen in a given liquid at a given temperature, John?
I don't have a good number, for difference. I know that the saturation point is, I think, 0.8 parts per million at 60 degrees, I believe. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure how the solubility goes from there, but we could probably go to Wikipedia or the CRC and get the solubility constant for lower temperatures.
Well, and whose law is it? Is it Charles or what law is it that the warmer the liquid, the less soluble?
Yes, Charles' law.
Is that Charles? All right, I can never remember.
I thought it was Crossley's law.
No, that has to do with temperature and sex.
Yeah.
So the warmer your wort, the less oxygen is going to dissolve into that wort. And this is interesting because you might think to yourself, well, what really does it matter? If you're doing ales, you actually need less oxygen in ale than you do in a lager, right?
Why is that?
You need a little more yeast in a lager. If you're pitching more yeast, again, you want some growth in your beer, of the yeast in your beer. If you're pitching a lager at double the amount of your ale yeast, you got double the amount of cells that are going to need some oxygen to pick up so they can do their growth, cell health, all that stuff, right? So one of the things you want to do is, chill your wort down to fermentation temperature, add your oxygen and add your yeast. Again, I got a real problem with doing lagers at warm temperatures and starting out at 75 degrees or whatever it is, pitching the yeast and doing the oxygen. I think I don't think that really is going to give you the best lager. If you want the best lagers, I think you chill your wort down first. You add your oxygen, you add your yeast, like they do at Gordon Biersch. Dan Gordon is also a proponent of this. You chill it down, you add your oxygen, you add your yeast, and you can get more oxygen into that wort as well.
Well, I think you should stop saying "I think," and you should just say "Do it."
Do it, you bastards!
I mean,
I said bastards.
Because if
Brew Pastor, please forgive me.
You're thinking, I think this, I think that. It sounds like you don't have anything to back it up, but you do, because you have industry professionals and you have historical brewing records from Jamil. So,
see, I think you pointed out one of the things. I say I think, but I really just
know.
I know, and
but you don't want to tell people.
I don't want to tell people.
Yeah.
We don't want to alienate our listeners, but really chill first, pitch later.
We want to lagernate them.
Right. I get people tell me, "Oh no, it works just fine." It's like, well, yeah, it can work okay, but I think if you want to make the best beer,
well, it works. Anything works. You put yeast in sugar and water, and
makes
it'll work.
Beer.
Yeah, it'll work. But is it good?
Right.
We don't know.
Right. No, that's a good point. That's a good point, JP.
Well, I don't know.
All right. Okay. One of the other questions Tom had was, what's too much?
Too much oxygen?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can get too much oxygen. You can start oxidizing various melanoidin compounds. Mm-hmm. And this gets into not necessarily the hot side aeration, but oxidation mechanisms you can set up by oxidizing melanoidins. You can create particles that will, not particles, but you can create compounds that will break down later in the life of the beer and cause staling.
Right. So you're adding oxygen, you're actually encouraging staling. Yeah.
Now, going back to the hot side aeration show, and some of the recent shows with Charlie Bamforth, a good, healthy ferment will clean all that up. Mm-hmm. But there is, I think, I've tasted beers that have been or aerated using hydrogen peroxide. Mm-hmm. I've tasted beers where a lot of oxygen was used for a long period of time, mm-hmm. and those haven't been as good as shorter oxygenation times or aquarium air pump aeration methods. Mm-hmm. So it is possible, and we've talked about Chad's beers and his lagers, mm-hmm. where he was trying to really, he'd
do 5 minutes at like 3 liters a minute, and they were coming out hot alcohol. I mean, they were coming out like solventy. He was doing everything else right, and I've had a number of people who have run into the same problem. Because the internet lore is, well, you can't add too much oxygen. It's impossible for, solubility. And I was like, well, I'm telling you, realistically, you can. And I don't know if it's because all that oxygen gets in the headspace and later gets absorbed and, the yeast outstrip all the other nutrients, or because you wouldn't think that they could, get to a point where the oxygen was a problem, and maybe it's something else. I don't know exactly what the mechanism is for it. I just know you can add too much oxygen if you're doing pure oxygen.
You just can't.
You can't.
Well, I'd say any experiment that you read about online, mm-hmm. Try for yourself. Mm-hmm. Before you believe it 100%, before you really buy into it, try it. Try it.
Crappy here on one of these brewing network shows.
Yeah, these brewing network guys.
Jesus Christ!
But really, that's the best way you're going to know is you teach yourself if that works for you or mm-hmm. not, right? Mm-hmm. Just don't wholesale believe everything. Everyone has their own slant on things.
Well, John, what about this? So you can do too much, but I guess Tom wants to know what is too much. So. I think
emptying a tank.
Right. Well, I like to start at like a half a liter or a liter per minute, and run for a minute and see how that works for you. If it's not enough, you go more. If it's too much, you go less, and you'll know by the beer flavor.
So by seeing if that works for you, you mean over a few batches? Tasting it and seeing.
It's all based on taste.
Okay.
And if the beer turned out the quality you like, and if there's any problems that are related to oxygenation, the interesting thing, a lot of people don't have like a regulator that can control flow, like a medical regulator. I think you pick them up on eBay pretty cheap, actually. But the thing you want to do is have a consistent amount of oxygen going in. You want the amount going through the stone and rising up to look the same every time. If you can do that, then once you have that dialed in, you need to pay particular attention to what it looks like every time. Then you can measure, and it really doesn't matter what that flow is. Just dial it in on your welding tank to look the same every single time. If it always looks exactly the same, then you can look at your watch and say, all right, I've done 30 seconds of what looks to me the same every time. I've done a minute. A minute seems good. I'm going to try a minute and a half. Oh, now I'm getting these hot alcohols. A minute and a half is too much. I'm going to go back to a minute 15. I'm going to go back to a minute. And then time, it's very easy to measure time. Everybody's got the ability to measure time. And that's what you want to get to. So it doesn't really matter that you're flowing exactly a liter a minute or whatever measurement. It's that you can reproduce the flow each time, and then measure it with your watch.
With the oxygen tanks, it's hard, and you can actually kind of feel when when it's open enough to start letting air in, because I ferment in a conical, so I have no way of seeing if it's flow, but I can feel it, which seems kind of weird. So I go by feel. So I'll start opening it until I can and you can kind of hear it too. It'll kind of go through the thing, and I open it a little bit more, and I think I have kind of a setting there. But for those of us in a conical, say like a Blickman conical, how do you know?
How about this? You could actually, what you can get pretty cheap is little gas flow meters on like eBay, right?
Right.
It's essentially a little ball in a tube, in a marked tube, a plastic tube that's marked, right?
Right.
Put that on your fermenter. If you seal off the fermenter, and the gas flowing out, you could actually measure how much flow is coming out of that thing.
Or in. I mean, you could put it in line with your oxygenation assembly.
Maybe you could, but you definitely could do it as it's coming out. And whatever's coming out, that if you're running the same reading on that every time, it's consistent. That's all you need. It doesn't matter what the number is, as long as you're just doing the same thing every time.
What do you think, John?
Well, all that is very true.
That's a load of crap.
No, all that is very true. I think I would just circle back around to why are we oxygenating? And it's to get the yeast to synthesize the sterols they need, get them up to full strength. Now, once they got those sterols synthesized, they have the materials they need to do cell reproduction.
Right.
Because they can only reproduce so many times before they've exhausted that material, and they can't replicate anymore. So, you can put in, and I was talking to Colin Kaminsky a couple weeks ago, and he brought up a good point that if you use a stir plate, you can put yeast on the stir plate, with some wort for about 4 hours. And in that time, the yeast will have built up their sterols, to full capacity. And you can pitch that yeast into the wort without aerating the wort, because you've done that oxygenation of the cells at that point. They've absorbed all the oxygen and made all the sterols they're going to use that they would use in the fermenter itself. So, but there is a window there. If you go 24 hours, now they're utilizing their glycogen reserves, their trehalose reserves. You've gone over the hill. You've gone past that point where you're going to want to add some more oxygen in the fermenter at that point.
Right. Well, and that's part of the difficulty of that is, you don't know that they really have an appropriate reserve of glycogen or trehalose from wherever you got that yeast initially, what their initial state is. Well, and this is one of the things with, there was a whole big thing where people got all excited about adding olive oil to their beer in order to avoid oxygenating and encouraging staling of their beer. Right, so the whole point was, the yeast could get what they needed to
without oxygen,
build their cell walls without oxygen, and thus you avoid oxygenating your wort, which causes staling, which et cetera, et cetera. But again, I think I think there's a whole reason there for. I'm just not 100% convinced. I think you can still. I think that there's a danger in over-oxygenating. I think there's a danger in head retention. I think there's all those issues. I think these are really fine issues, and that the difference between because you could instead of a stir plate, you can just bubble oxygen into your yeast slurry.
Yeah.
Give them oxygen that way, and then pitch them. I mean, that's also possible.
Well, I think that olive oil thing was based on research done at New Belgium, right?
Right.
But I think they were just saying it could be done. But I don't think they were even doing it.
Well, they did it, and then they're just like, yeah, it's within tolerances, but, they pretty much dropped it, too.
Yeah, so, I mean...
Because it does affect the flavor.
Sure.
It's not as effective as adding oxygen. I think one of the things you lose, if you add the oxygen to the yeast directly,
Well, you can kill them.
Well, or rectum. Yeah. You could add the oxygen to the yeast directly, but the difficulty is you add the yeast to the wort, and they don't have that layer of oxygen in the headspace that they start to draw on as they replicate. And the whole thing about the cell walls that John was talking about earlier is imagine taking a balloon, right? And you blow a little bit of air into it, and then you
fill it with
twist
cocaine
it off,
and swallow it, and then fly on a plane.
Shove it up. No. Yeah. No, you twist it off into two balloons, right? And then you take that resulting balloon and you blow a little more air into it, and you twist it off into two more balloons. And what's happening is the balloon material, that skin of that balloon is getting thinner and thinner and tighter and tighter. And if you weren't able to kind of replace that material, you wouldn't be able to twist it off into more little small balloons, right? Each time you do that, you're taking half the material that the balloon has and giving it away.
Yep.
And every time another cell buds off of a yeast cell, it takes half of everything that yeast cell has and gives it away. And that yeast cell can only do that a certain number of times before it's pretty much spent. And the proper nutrients, it's not just oxygen that limits yeast cell growth. It's other nutrients that are available in the wort. It's other conditions. Yeast cell, every time they bud, they get a scar. They're only capable of budding a certain number of times before they're too scarred out to bud again. Of course, that's far more than they normally reproduce, anyways. But you get like 3 or 4 buddings, and then that's it. That's they've run their course, no matter how much you tend to pump in there. So all that extra oxygen tends to go towards, I guess, oxidation of the wort.
How many bud scars do you have, JP?
I've given half of myself away more times than I care.
More than you want to count. All right, let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll dig more into Tom's questions about aeration. Back after this.
Keep your carboy cap on. This is Brew Strong. We'll be right back.
Hey, what are you doing, man?
Writing a review of WLP 400.
What? You're reviewing yeast?
Yeah. White Labs has home brewer reviews of all their strains. Are you new to these interwebs? Check it out.
That's awesome.
White Labs, your source for great yeast, invites all brewers to visit whitelabs.com to read and write your own reviews of all their yeast strains. Get real-world tips and tricks from other brewers who have made the most of their vials and post your own experiences. It's another way White Labs brings you closer to the best yeast on the planet.
And send. There you go.
You misspelled flocculate, dude.
What? Mother...
White Labs. It's all in the vial.
Hi, this is Push from the Brewing Network, and I want to tell you about the Brewmaster's Warehouse and how you can get 10% off your next order. I'm a pretty techie guy, but I've never seen an online store like this. It's awesome. Go to brewmasterswarehouse.com and click on Brew Builder. You can whip up a custom recipe so easily even Sven could do it. Seriously, it's slick. You can share your recipe with your own logo and notes to the Brewmasters database if you want, and the best part, it keeps a running tally of the beer you're building while you're doing it. Then, bam, click Buy Recipe, and your cart is filled and ready to go with helpful suggestions in case you forgot something. This thing is amazing. Brewmasters Warehouse is run the way a homebrewer would do it, with great service, fast turnaround, and $6.99 flat rate shipping. Brewmasters Warehouse and the Brew Builder blew me away. Check it out today at brewmasterswarehouse.com. I'm serious. And don't forget to put BNARMY in the discount code box for 10% off your order. Check out brewmasterswarehouse.com. Cheers.
BN Army members, are you looking for a discount on hops? Keep listening. Nico's Homebrew Supply at nicobrew.com has hops by the ounce and by the pound. Choose from varieties like Amarillo, Centennial, East Kent Goldings, Hallertauer, Simcoe, Summit, Tomahawk, Warrior, Willamette, and more. And adding new varieties all the time, many for less than $20 a pound. Whether a couple ounces at a time or an 11-pound bag, all hops are shipped vacuum sealed and frozen straight to you. Nico's Homebrew Supply offers store-wide $5 flat rate shipping and won't waste your money on unnecessary overhead or advertising. They're going bare bones and passing the savings on to you. The staff at Nico's Homebrew Supply loves to brew and is committed to keeping homebrewing affordable and accessible to anyone who wants to join in this great hobby. And for a limited time, use coupon code BNARMY at checkout for a Brewing Network discount. Visit nicobrew.com. That's Niko brew.com for your hops and more. nicobrew.com, your bare bones buddy in the brewing business.
This holiday season is one of gratitude, giving, and winning. More Beer says thank you to all their wonderful customers with deals from Thanksgiving through New Year's, in addition to low prices, free shipping, and the More Beer deal of the day every day. And one lucky customer is going to win Regan's Big Fat Package, the very first More Beer pressurizable conical fermenter. Rolling out just in time for the holidays, it's their brand new redesigned stainless conical line with a new threadless racking port, new stand options, and a new pressurizable lid. They're giving away one of these new pressurizable conicals on December 31st. For every order you place with More Beer between November 1st and December 31st, use the coupon code CONICAL up to once every day to enter yourself into the drawing. Go to morebeer.com for more details. The 2009 More Beer season of winning. Win yourself some great deals and maybe even a brand new conical fermenter. Enter today only at morebeer.com.
You're listening to the Brewing Network.
Learning to brew has never been so disgusting. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. We're talking aeration, oxygen, how it goes in the beer, and Palmer's on a roll. He's been quite snippy tonight. I mean, I had an attitude problem, a few shows ago. Oh, that was on Kenya Brett, but Palmer's got the thing going tonight.
Call him Butter. He's on a roll.
He's been much better than you tonight, JP.
That's the kind of humor that Palmer normally has,
but not tonight.
Not tonight. He's got the zingers. All right, so a couple other questions. All right, so welding oxygen versus medical oxygen. Go.
Same.
Right, it's the same stuff. It's there's no difference. I think they need to guarantee a certain purity in medical oxygen, but it's all just collected out of the air anyways through the same piece of equipment, I believe. And
it's just the tank, right? That's what they
99.9, 99.5. It's at those levels. It can't support life anyway. It just oxidizes everything. So.
Yeah, and people go, well, there could be oil in welding oxygen. And no, there couldn't. Because you'd have a fireball on your hands.
Which is pretty cool, though.
Anywhere you can get oxygen, I think you're going to be just fine. The thing is, cost. Welding oxygen would be a lot cheaper than medical oxygen just because, of liability and insurance purposes, I think.
Right.
Because if you, screw up somebody's weld, that's one thing. If you kill somebody, that's a whole different liability factor right there.
Well, in fact, I think I may be completely wrong, but I seem to remember that actually welding oxygen is higher purity than medical. Medical may have more water in it.
Oh, there you go.
But that's a theory, though, right?
Either case, I wouldn't worry about it. If you can get oxygen in a tank, it's fine for brewing.
Yeah, get it from Home Depot, you're good.
And anywhere you can get it cheap, that's the way to go. Get it from whatever place you think. Aeration stones. Again, I think we kind of touched on this earlier. The whole purpose is the finer the bubble, the more liquid it's going to lift to the surface. You'll get more surface area on it. Let's say you're passing a liter of oxygen through a stone. The finer the bubbles that liter of oxygen is broken up into, the more surface area that it's going to have. It's dramatically different. If you're doing just bubbles out the end of a tube, a quarter-inch tube, versus a 2-micron sintered stone, it's a huge difference in surface area. It's on the order of thousands, tens of thousands as far as surface area goes. But it really doesn't matter that much. Really, what's happening is it's lifting the liquid to the surface. It's turning that liquid over in the fermenter, and all the oxygen air gets deposited at the surface of the wort in the head space of the fermenter, and that's where turning that liquid over in the fermenter at that purified head space of oxygen. That's where a lot of your absorption is happening. So, it is worth getting the center stone. But not critical. I think you could pump oxygen into the headspace. This is I get all sorts of oxygen questions via email. I'm sure you do too, John. You could pump oxygen into the headspace of the fermenter, and then just shake the fermenter, and you probably get quite a good. The thing is, you won't get the oxygen, the wort from the bottom up to the top, unless you're really like tumbling your fermenter. How do you oxygenate your wort, JP?
I breathe into it. I just sit there
that explains a whole lot about the flavors of your beer.
I sneeze. I have an oxygen system with the little red Bernzomatic or Benzomatic or whatever the welding thing with the little brass and black knob with a tubing to a sanitary air filter. Just in case it's cheap enough.
You don't need it,
but
it's
whatever.
A couple of bucks,
it's not going to hurt anything anyway.
Right.
To a sintered stone, and I just drop it down the hole in my conical.
Right.
Turn it on for an arbitrary amount of time. My concept of time is real off, so it could be half a minute, could be 2 minutes, and that's it. That's really all I do.
And you brew really good beer.
Yeah, I brew beer.
Right. No, you brew really good beer.
Yeah, it's all right.
And so I think, I
appreciate it.
The process is fairly forgiving, I think you're saying, right?
It is, yeah. And when I had a carboy, I did everything from the little thing that shoots the air, the wort aerator.
It kind of fans out.
It's
like
out,
a little
quality fermentat.
Like an inverted, or it's like a little...
China hat.
Right. Like a patty hat, yeah. When you're working the rice paddies... you would wear one of these hats. It makes the wort fan out into a
from
cone.
Your youth.
Yeah, right. When I was working the paddies in my youth,
so I used to do that. I used to rock shake the carboy, and I just never felt safe doing that because my carboy was usually wet on the surface, or my hands were usually wet, and it slipped a couple times. It didn't drop or break or anything, but I could feel my grip.
A lot of lotion on your hands.
Slip, yeah, a lot
KY.
Well, I thought this was a serious show.
Well,
you build it as a serious show, Justin.
Yeah, we want to know how you pass gas to your wort, JP.
So, but
that's what I used to do. I don't like doing the shake method because of that. Because I don't want to kill myself.
Well, one of the things I don't like about the wort spray thing is you got to be you got to be pulling air into your fermenter, as you're doing that.
You're relying on the ambient air being okay. Right.
I like to
but something
positive
better than
pressure nothing. Out of the fermenter using oxygen or filtered air so it's sterile.
Right. But for, $3.95 or $2.50 or whatever it is, something is better than nothing. Right.
But,
No, I agree. I completely agree.
I think you're picking up some wild yeast and bacteria, and, your shelf life of your beer is going to be shortened from that. Okay, let's see.
Which you could also make the point for an aeration system, an aeration pump without the sanitary air filter.
Right. Yeah, if you're going to use a fish pump, you got to use a sanitary, a sterile air filter on that. And they're only a couple of bucks. More Beer sells them. I think Northern Brewer sells them. Your local homebrew shop, probably has them or can get them for you. Go down there, a few bucks, and you put that in line, and you got no worries.
Yeah.
Other than head retention, I think that's a potential gotcha. I think if you're going for a long time, if you're going to do it, don't do the 45-minute thing. I think 15 minutes is probably plenty.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, Jamil, you're what you're trying to do is move the wort, bring it up to the surface, expose it to the headspace. Keep it moving during that time. And you can, if you think that, if you're brewing a high gravity beer, or you've got a low initial pitch, then you could oxygenate it a couple of times, over a few hour period, for 10, 15 minutes at a time with an air pump. Because you're not going to over oxygenate at that point,
right?
Like you could with pure O2,
right?
And that'll give the yeast more time to absorb oxygen and build up their numbers better.
Well, one of the questions that I get every couple of months at least, and I got it just recently, was
how'd you get so handsome?
Well, there you go. All right. I knew there was a reason you're here, JP. It wasn't just beer information. The dry yeast sites, several of them say, well, our yeast has all the, glycogen, trehalose, sterols, everything it needs to ferment properly. You don't need to add any oxygen to your wort when you're using dry yeast. What do you think about that, John?
Well, what they're probably doing is they're just putting more cells in the package, to maybe so they don't need to do a whole lot of reproduction. We've also talked about in the past, pitching rates and so on. You want a certain amount of yeast replication because that builds essential flavors into the beer. If you use a high pitching rate where the yeast don't have to replicate much, you get a much different beer character than if you pitch a low pitching rate where they have to replicate a lot. So there's some truth to what these companies are saying, where you don't need to add oxygen, but that's because they put enough yeast in that packet, so they've got a high pitching rate, and they don't need as much oxygen to create to have the total yeast mass able to ferment that batch. But you're going to end up with a different character to the beer than if you had pitched, say, an optimum amount of yeast or a lower amount of yeast with oxygen.
Right. Oh, well, and my take on it is I add oxygen when I use dry yeast, and my thinking is this: there's a certain amount of reserves that a yeast cell can carry. So glycogen, trehalose, the sterols that they need for the cell walls, all that. There's a certain limit to that. The wet yeast cell companies, liquid yeast companies.
Oh my God!
Jesus, which end did that come out of? The liquid yeast cell companies, they're capable of putting all that into their yeast cells as well. They put just as much into it. The difference is, once you've dried that yeast, they're pretty much in stasis. Nothing's really happening at that point. And those reserves are fairly locked in at that time. The liquid yeast cells, they use that reserve to really maintain the health of the yeast, on shipping. So they're maxing their yeast out as well. They're no dummies. These guys know what they're doing. They're sending yeast, stacked to the gills with all the nutrients and reserves that they possibly can hold. And the question is, a month down the line, 2 months down the line, 3 months down the line, it's used up some of that in staying alive and that's why it's not at the maximum at that point. So that's kind of the difference between the liquid and the dry. Either way, I would add oxygen. I think I wouldn't over oxygenate in either case, but I don't think you're going to experience any harm from the dry yeast. Anything else to add to that, John?
No, I think you covered that real well.
All right, thank you. No shot, no dig. Come on,
you guys are nice. You guys are nice together.
I was
hold
taking a
hands
drink.
too.
Yeah.
He wasn't paying attention to what I said, so he's like, "Yeah, that was real nice. That was solid. All right."
He was hitting the beer bong. He couldn't be bothered.
Went out, took a pee while I was talking. Yeah. No, that was good. All right. Well, and I think we got a guest on the line. We've got Tom Hart, brew pastor. Cool. Hey, you there?
I'm here. How you doing?
Hey, brother. Now,
you guys have been. Go ahead.
Oh, Tom, you've been a long-time listener, haven't you?
I have been. Long time.
Right.
I enjoy all your shows. They're educational, entertaining, informative, and, yep. Thank you very much.
And regardless of our locker room humor...
It makes half the show, I think. Well, it is half the show, at least.
Unfortunately.
Oh, a shot from Tom. That's good.
Yeah, Justin and I were talking about it and before the show as locker room humor, and then we decided it's really more like juvenile detention humor.
I was just brewery humor. I worked in a brewery for a while, and I do know that my humor shifted dramatically in those years. So there you have it.
There you go. All right, so Tom, I thought you had a lot of good questions here, and you've been in this brewing thing a lot longer than I have, at least twice as long as I have. You even took the BJCP exam, probably. I
think that's when they asked what beer was made out of.
Twice as many years ago before I did.
Yeah. I think I started brewing in like 80 or 81, something like that. Crazy changes in the history of that. And actually, it wasn't. We didn't even think about oxygenating beer. It wasn't until I actually opened a brewery and somebody said you ought to do it, and we were just amazed at what it could do. So then, after I left that and went back to homebrewing, of course, began to do it. But the show's been helpful because I've not ever seen a lot of information really on levels and really even process. So this has been good. You've been checking off all my questions.
Okay.
But the main thing that I picked up is it's like everything else in brewing. It's not rocket science, and just don't overthink it. But I had two questions further. I've heard that over oxygenating can affect attenuation, that you can have your beer can attenuate more than you expect if you over-oxygenate. I don't know if that's true or not. I've not experienced it myself. The other one would be I have a couple. My system can be set up in a couple different ways and for oxygenating, and one of them is in line. So as I pump it, as it comes out of the chiller, I can oxygenate it right there. And I'm from what I'm hearing, it doesn't sound like there'd be a whole lot of advantage to that over just dropping the stone down in the bottom of the conical. So thoughts there.
Okay, well, let's tackle that over attenuation one first. I think there's a potential there for that to happen. I don't know if it's over attenuation or it's fully attenuated. The yeast are only gonna consume what they're gonna consume. The interesting thing is, I think if you force too much growth on the yeast, depending on your initial pitching rate and nutrient levels and a lot of other factors, you could actually cause the beer to attenuate less with too much oxygen. So,
they'll make more yeast rather than beer.
Right, and you end up with, you can end up with more acetaldehyde. You can end up with, a lot of other compounds that was unintended by over-oxygenating. That's part of that whole hot alcohols thing that Chad was experiencing, and a number of other people have as well. So, while I think it's possible, I wouldn't worry too much about over attenuating. I think, if anything, I think a lot of people that are homebrewing, they tend to get used to, the concept of their beers being under attenuated. Not fully attenuated, and they think that's normal. And then when they get a fully attenuated beer, they're like, wow, it over-attenuated. Anything to add to that, John or JP?
No, that's what I was thinking, too.
No, I like that. It's very...
I was also thinking that, Jamil.
Yeah. No, the language.
Why do I do this show with anybody else? I should be here by myself, just talking away.
Yeah. The language that we use as homebrewers, but people in general, is very important. So you say over attenuation. Well, that's not really possible. So if you want to solve the issue,
that's true. It's not really possible.
Yeah, if you want to find out if you're doing it or not, first of all, you have to stop calling it over attenuation because, like you said, it can only do what it can do. Right. You can't make it do anything else. So
the only thing would be if you have like a wild yeast or a bacteria, and
But that's not really over attenuation of the yeast.
Those
it's your beer.
Those critters are attenuating to what they can attenuate. To
which is like zero.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good point. That's a good point. All right. Inline in O2 versus the fermenter. My take on it is, the advantage to inline O2 or air is that you get a much higher saturation. You get a longer contact time with those bubbles. So, this comes from like a lot of breweries where they'll put the O2 in, and they'll run it through 30-foot of line before it gets to the fermenter, or 100-foot of line before it gets from the kettle through the heat exchanger to the fermenter, is like in another part of the building, and they'll inject their oxygen early on. It can get they'll run it to a point where those oxygen bubbles, those real fine sintered stone oxygen bubbles, will be absorbed by the time they reach the fermenter. And you get almost, it's like almost nothing, no bubbles by the time it reaches the fermenter, because it's in contact for such a long time. It gets absorbed in. So that's kind of the advantage to inline. You're gonna pump less oxygen. You're gonna pay for less oxygen than if you just bubble it up and and fill the fermenter type of thing. So that's kind of my take on it. If you can do it, I think. Well, all right. So what I would do is I would do one or the other. I don't think it really matters. I think what's important is that it's consistent and repeatable, and that you measure the amount of time and flow. And once it's repeatable, then you can cut back or you can increase until the beer tastes perfect. John, what's your take on that?
I think that's a very good point. You have two kind of variables. You can adjust your pitching rate, or in keeping your oxygenation level, method constant, or you can take it. I'm gonna pitch 2 yeast packs, and then I'm going to work on adding more or less time for oxygen to the batch, subsequent batch, till I get the beer flavor that I'm looking for. Getting that optimum flavor profile. I think everybody can attack that either way. But what the important thing is to get the beer flavor you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Well, JP, what's your take on that as far as inline versus right into the fermenter?
I've never done inline, so I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I can't comment on it.
Okay.
I think we as homebrewers want to replicate commercial breweries as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we automatically assume that inline is going to be the best because that's what the commercial brewer does.
Right.
Yeah. But my hose is too short to get good effective inline.
That sounds like a personal problem.
Yeah. Heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Compared to the
shared
big
a room
boys.
with Palmer.
I know.
His hose isn't too short, I can tell you that.
So I don't
Plenty of
know.
hose.
I don't have anything to. I've only ever done the shake or the oxygenation method. So I don't know.
The shake?
I'll do the shimmy later for you.
Right. Well, and I think that's so. I think it boils down to
that's a beer joke. Sorry, go ahead.
The flavor of the beer is really what you're targeting. So you can use any of these methods. I think that's kind of the gist of the thing. You can use any of these methods. You can use the aquarium pump. You can use oxygen. You can use all these things. If the resulting beer is turning out as an ideal beer, then there's nothing to change. It'll work. I think you can, especially in ales. I think you can get plenty of oxygen with air. I think when you get to lagers, you might need to go to oxygen. I think that's where the whole concept of oxygen, really, and the need for oxygen came from.
That's probably true.
I think you can use whatever method. I think the importance of whatever method you're using is that the oxygen you're providing is delivered in a sanitary way, that you're not drawing in outside air unless it's filtered, and that you're doing it in a controlled way that can be measured. And once you're able to measure it, you're able to taste the beer, and based on the taste, you're able to adjust up or down and get the desired effect. And I think that's really what it all boils down to. Tom, have we covered your questions? You got any more for us?
I think you've done a great job. I really appreciate the time and energy you put into it.
Well, and Tom, I appreciate your the emails you sent me, and I appreciate this one especially. I think we fast tracked this one. This one you sent it end of October 2009, and here we got it answered.
That's a fast track.
That's a fast track.
That is a fast track. The show before was a year-old question.
Yeah, it was over a year old. Yeah. No, we got thousands of questions. You send them in to Brew Strong at thebrewingnetwork.com, and I save every one of them. John and I and Justin, we all review these, and we pay attention to the questions that are coming in. We can't respond to them all individually, but we save them all, and we will do our best to cover every question that comes in. And we take pride in trying to do it right, and fully delving into the question and answering every question you got. So, Tom, we really appreciate your participation. It's been great.
Well, thank you. Good night.
All right, take care, brother. All right, so that's kind of the wrap up on aeration, oxygenation.
What was the conclusion? What's better? I just want to know what's better. So for those of us who
listen to the show,
for those of us who have skipped it out,
and if you're listening live, stay tuned. We got a live Q&A show coming up, and I don't know what Justin's saying to me.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back or something. I don't know.
Brew Strong. This is Brew Strong.
When Blickman Engineering set out to design a great brewing stand, they knew it had to be strong, adaptable, and last for a lifetime. The top-tier brewing stand is now proudly available at BlickmanEngineering.com. It grows with your brewing skills and equipment. Start with 5-gallon coolers on its heavy-gauge stainless steel shelves. Then move all the way up to 30-gallon pots on the high-output burner tiers. Speaking of burners, the custom Blickman Engineering top-tier burners are extremely powerful, efficient, and amazingly quiet. They have safety stops to center your pot, and they'll last a lifetime and won't rust. The top-tier brewing stand allows virtually infinite combinations from traditional gravity systems to 2 tiers to completely horizontal. Configure your stand the way you want and have the freedom to change it at any time in the future. Your brewing stand should adapt with you, not force you to learn a new process. Visit BlickmanEngineering.com today to configure your top-tier brewing stand and to find a local Blickman retailer. You'll be surprised with all the flexible features and the competitive price. Start brewing with Blickman from the top tier.
Nico, listen, our lawyers said that we had to do this for 1 hour, and after this, we don't have to talk to each other for 3 more months to the next meeting.
Kids, come on, let's get out of here.
I'm supposed to have more lines. I'm the professional. Hey, it's Sully.
And I'm Nico.
And we opened the 21st Amendment 9 years ago at 563 2nd Street in San Francisco, just 2 blocks from Giants Park, to make great beer and have a great time doing it.
That's right, because to us, the 21st Amendment is more than just the right to make beer. It's the right to experiment, to be innovative, and just do things differently. And so now, we're putting our craft beer in cans.
That's right, cans. You can find our world-famous Hell or High Watermelon Wheat Beer and Brew Free or Die IPA throughout California and Alaska.
And now it's also available on draft at select accounts in the Bay Area.
So next time you're at your local neighborhood pub or good beer store, be sure to ask for 21st Amendment in cans.
Because everyone likes it in a can.
Tasty crack cans.
Tasty crack cans.
Williams Brewing is your online resource for prompt delivery of quality home brewing supplies. Since 1979, Williams Brewing has offered the finest equipment and freshest ingredients and the best customer service in the business. Cut hours off your brewing sessions by using one of our 11 varieties of famous Williams malt extract. Our Williams Belgian Pale Extract is mashed with pure Belgian 2-row malt and a small percentage of Belgian wheat malt for an authentic Belgian character you just can't get from other extracts. Or check out our unique fermenters, 2.5-gallon kegs, paintball tank-based draft beer equipment, bottling aids, and much more. We even have our own line of precision hydrometers. Go to WilliamsBrewing.com to browse our vast selection. That's WilliamsBrewing.com. Orders placed by 3:30 p.m. Pacific Time ship the same day. Brewing is easy. The Williams way.
There's an app on the iPhone for just about everything, including beer. Apps for finding a pint of beer. Apps that look like you're drinking a pint of beer. And now, there's an app for brewing a pint of beer. Introducing BrewPal, the most all-inclusive beer brewing app for professionals and hobbyists that fits in your pocket and goes wherever you do. Recipe formulation that can be imported and exported with a customizable database. Mash and sparge calculations, yeast pitching rates, carbonation tables, and more. Available right now for less coin than a pound of grain. See BrewPal in action at brewpal.info and download it for your iPhone at a special introductory price right now. BrewPal, all the brewing software you need, right in your pocket.
This is www.thebrewingnetwork.com.
Sit down next to it, grab yourself a paper towel, and watch those yeast have sex.
You're listening to the Brewing Network.
Back to the 2 guys that know how to turn beer into beer. This is Brew Strong.
Woo! Yippee-ki-yay! We're back for another segment on this show.
Can I do one?
Finish this show, yeah.
Can I do an intro?
Sure.
Ram-a-lam-a-ding-dong. What do you think? Can I fit in, John?
Reverend.
I didn't get a harumph out of that guy.
A harumph. Yes. Yeah, I was showing my kids Blazing Saddles, but then I realized it was R-rated and probably not appropriate.
And an R rating back then is like an X rating now.
No, not really.
Almost.
It's kind of the reverse.
But a lot of the jokes don't really translate today, I found.
Oh, farts translate all the time.
Well, yeah, those. But I mean, a lot of the racial stuff just doesn't work anymore. It's not risque anymore.
Oh, yeah? Well, yeah, there you go. I was sitting with my youngest daughter and went through all the National Lampoon vacation movies. I realized they're all R-rated with a lot of booby action.
How old is your daughter?
She's like 14.
Is that weird?
A little bit.
A little bit weird, right?
Yeah, but it's boobies. Everybody's got boobies.
Even Jamil.
Her dad's got a big pair.
Is the right one bigger than the left one?
No, that's on my testes. Okay. You need to pay attention. Actually, they're all the same size. I'm kind of disappointed they've gone back to being so small, but
just keep squeezing them.
Or twist them around. I think it's the torsion thing that does it.
I just poke them back
Give that a try,
me.
Palmer. God. This show's already gone in the toilet. Oh my gosh! What does our new sponsor Blickman think of this? I don't know.
I did warn him, actually.
You warned him. That's why he sent me all those weird emails of what have I got myself into? I think this is the end of the company. I don't know. Oh, well, all right. So, where are we at? We got some questions from the chat room, so we're going to wrap this SOB up.
Couple quick clarifications, and we'll get out of here to our Q&A show coming up next.
All right. Another show coming up.
You talked about your flow meter. Use a medical grade O2 tank. Where did you get it?
Chad.
You got it, Chad. Okay. Well, you did, didn't you? That's right.
But I had one before that. Again, as a dive instructor, I had a tank with for emergency.
But it was medical grade, not the welding grade, which is like a CO2, right?
All right. So it's not necessarily medical grade. It is. It's oxygen regulator based on flow is what they use for medical emergencies, right? So you put a mask on somebody's face, you deliver a certain flow of oxygen that they can breathe from, and they dial down to a quarter or a half liter per minute, up to 4 or 5 liters a minute.
Okay.
And that's really all it is. It's those settings, and it just it allows a certain flow of gas, regardless of tank pressure, and you're delivering that amount of oxygen to the end result, which is the patient or the beer.
So where is it available? Is his follow up?
I'd go to eBay or something like that.
Okay. It's not generally a homebrew shop.
No
item.
No.
Okay.
And if you try and buy it from some medical supply place, they're going to want to see a license for using those sort of things.
Jerks.
You could probably go to a welding shop and get one for oxyacetylene welding.
Okay.
Or go to eBay.
Okay.
Right. And those tend to be tend to deliver a pretty consistent flow as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they do. I mean, there's really no difference in the technology between welding and medical. Medical just needs all of the FDA approvals and overhead.
Well, it's got a number on it. I mean, you click it to a various, so you know what the setting is, versus opening a valve and looking at your flame and seeing that your flame is right.
Or looking at a dial or pressure.
You dial it to a certain number. And that's one of the advantages of the medical regulator.
That's true.
Now, if you happen to... So, I know a lot of dentists, so I got a lot of Johns, but I got a lot of dentists as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And one of the advantages of dentists is they're essentially doctors.
Essentially. Doc would punch you for that, I think.
No. I'm saying...
They're doctors.
Doc's not going to do brain surgery on me.
Yeah.
Or take out my appendix.
Unless you asked him to.
If you asked him to, he'd probably try.
I trust him over a lot of other people to do it.
I could do that.
They're freaking. Some of these dudes are surgeons.
Yeah.
And they can prescribe medications. They do everything a doctor does, except they're working on the mouth versus all the other parts of the body. So. Certainly they can do it. They don't do it every day. Is my point. So they're essentially, they're not GPs and they're not they're specialists on the mouth. They can prescribe a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of doctors, dentist doctors in homebrewing. So you befriend one of them, they can set you up with oxygen. You go to your dentist and say, hey, I want to get oxygen for brewing. Can you hook me up? You'd be surprised. That's where I'd go.
Okay.
If you can't find it on eBay or something like that, that's who I'd turn. I'd turn to my dentist. I wouldn't turn to my GP.
Okay. And a final clarification.
Because your GP is going to say, why are you drinking? Are you drinking too much? That's what they ask you. How much are you drinking?
Fill out this survey.
I don't know.
It's for a friend.
How much does the keg hold?
Yeah.
I
don't know. What day is it?
Yeah. Your dentist isn't going to question how much you're drinking. Your GP is going to question how much you're drinking. That's from personal experience.
Your dentist is going to make you
tell you right there
buy
on the web,
beer.
on the cam.
All All right, last one. Aquarium pump with aeration stone for a yeast starter, or should we just get a stir plate?
Stir plate.
That's the better way to go?
They're both fine.
Okay.
Theory is, you can aeration has the benefit of stirring it up, maybe not as thoroughly as a stir plate. And stir plate, it keeps the yeast in suspension. They have access to all the sugars, and then you get the diffusion of oxygen through the ever exchanging surface of the wort in the starter, right? If you use a stone with oxygen, you can get pretty much even stirring of the entire starter. You may have some dead spots, not a big deal. You may, as long as you're not using pure oxygen, I think that's fine too. Whatever's cheaper for you, that's what I'd go with. Whatever's cheaper, easier, and more sanitary. The thing I don't
that's
like
how
about
I pick my women.
Sanitary?
Cheaper, easier, and more sanitary. Whatever works that way.
The first
you can
and
only
the
have
third
two of
are
the
kind
three.
Well, I think the first and the third are mutually exclusive.
Those rules, yeah. The thing is, I don't like working with the stones because unless you're sterilizing it every time, you're bringing some sort of contaminant over.
Okay.
I don't like sticking anything in my starter. Just like you don't like sticking anything in women.
Yeah. Like sticking anything in anywhere.
Unless it's a hypodermic needle. You know what I mean?
What? All right, that's it from the chat room today. Take us to show number 3, please.
All right, we're done. That's it. I already wrapped this up. Just scroll back in the MP3.
Just do an abrupt end.
Right. And we're going to go to a live Q&A. So if you're listening live, hang in there. We'll answer all your questions. Call in 888-401-BEER or in the chat or email Justin at thebrewingnetwork.com and we'll answer those questions. Me, Palmer, JP, and Justin will answer those questions in just a bit. Otherwise, if you got a chance, go by the Blickman site. Email John Blickman, tell him how much you appreciate that he paid for you to listen to the show for free. Very cool of him. We really appreciate it, and we really appreciate you listening.
Yeah.
Until then, brew strong.
Brew strong, everybody.